Hi, I'm Doug Lewin, and this is a tutorial on Canopy's interactive development environment using Python. Let's first show you the layout of the LAN. On the left-hand side is what we call the browser bar. In there it tracks all of our files that we're going to use, and we'll show you a little bit more about that later on in the tutorial. In the middle is the Canopy editor, where we can edit files, and on the bottom is our Python interactive environment, also known as the Python shell. I'll refer to it as Python because this is where all the good stuff is going to happen. So let's do our first command. If you look on the lower left hand side, there's an in and a 1. So that's where Python wants us to type our first command. So in here, I'm going to type 1 plus 1. So I left click next to that 1. That's what gets me to allow me to do the input. I'll move my mouse away here. So 1 plus 1, if I hit enter, that tells Python to execute whatever I typed in. And this time it responds with the answer 2. So it's kind of like a calculator at this point. I typed in 1 plus 1, it spits out a 2 just like a calculator. I could have done 3 divided by 4, giving me an answer there too. Alright, so that's what's happening. One command at a time. Let's try another command. Let's do A is equal to 2 plus, now let's make it a little fancier, 2 times 3. So we're going to do a little multiplication this time. Alright, so I hit enter, I get nothing. Well, let's explain what happens here. Python did what we wanted it to do. It said we want A is equal to 2 times 3. It did that. It made A, that variable, equal to 2 times 3, which should be 6. There was nothing to display. In our first command, we simply did an expression, and so Python didn't know what to do with the output, so it simply displayed it to the screen. So if we want to find out what A's value truly is, we just type in A. 6. Okay, that's good. So anything we type in, hit enter, Python executes that command, or that sentence, or whatever it may be at that time, and executes it, or at least tries to. So let's see what happens when we type in something wrong. Here we go. I've got B is equal 4. That's not a valid command. So it gives us an error. All right, so it told us it was wrong. I can retype that in if I want to. But what I really like to do is, and I really don't want to type it in. What happens if I have a really long line of code that I typed in? I don't want to retype it. I can use the up arrow. So right now I'm pressing the up arrow. And you notice it says B equal 4. If I keep pressing the up arrow, right, I get every command I've typed in so far. Now, I just want B is equal 4, so I'm going to go back down with the down arrow. I found the command I want. I'm going to modify it to B equal 4 and then hit enter. Okay, so that's what we do. We enter in commands in a Python shell. It executes them. It tells us what happened. All right. Now say I want to do lots of lines of code. And I don't want to type them in one at a time, and I want to reuse them over and over again. Maybe I'll do some today, some tomorrow, whatever the case may be. That's where I go to the Canopy editor. I'm going to click now on create a new file, middle of my screen. Click on that. Now what's happen is I'm opening up an editor where I can type in, just like Word, I can type lines of code. It doesn't have a name yet, but we'll fix that in just a minute. All right, so let's type some code. I'm going to do A is equal to 4, B is equal to 3, C is equal to A plus B. All right, so I really don't want to type that down below. Now, I'd like to execute this. I've written my code. What I want to do now is actually save my file. So I'm going to go over to the left-hand side where the little floppy is, or the little disk. Hit the left mouse button. Right, I want to save it. Let's name this thing sample.py. Okay. Now, the py is important. That tells Canopy that we are working on a Python file. Canopy supports a lot of different things. Today we're doing Python, all right? So we save it as .python. And this becomes important in just a second. So let's save it. Ah, it already exists. What do? Oh, just say yes. Save it again. Okay. Here we go. Now, notice gray. Those are my input constants, expressions. I'm sorry, the numbers and the equal signs, those are constants and expressions. where the A, B, C, those are variables. We want to run it. We press this green arrow. Press the green arrow. Now let's look down in our Python shell window, if you would, please. Down there, it's got this really long string. That really long string is the name of the file and where it's at. So what happened is the editor passed that file to Python. Python opens it one line at a time and executes it. So it did the A is equal, the B is equal, the C is equal. So if we want to see the results of that, we could do that. We can type in A like we did before. There's A. We'll type in B, and then we'll type in C. Okay, so there's all there. Now, what's cool about this, like I said before, is I could say, oh, I didn't want to add those two. I like to multiply them. So I'm going to change that from addition to multiplication. Now, again, I press the green arrow. It's going to run it again. What's really nice, though, is because I've already saved this, Python knows to save it again. So I don't lose my work every time I run. So it'll save it before I run it every time once I've given it a name. This way I can't lose any work. All right. So we've covered the window, the text, and I said something earlier. I said, oh, it has to be named .py. Well, here's the reason why. I want to see C, so I'm going to say print C. Notice what's happened here is that print is green. That says that that is a Python keyword. And the editor, Canopy, will actually go through and look for that and try to help me syntactically, make sure everything's written correctly. Give you another example. I'm going to type in name here. Well, there's a red squiggly line. If I was in Word, we know that that was what? That's a misspelled word. Well, in Canopy, in this case actually in Python, is what we're verifying against. It's looking for, has to be either a variable name, has to be a keyword, a function name, or a comment. Or lastly, some kind of a constant. So gray and black, green. We'll show you red and blue in just a minute. Well, name isn't any of those. So if I want to get it right, I got to type in C. Okay. Now we're good. Now let's run this. It should print out C. So if we look down at the bottom again, look at the bottom of your screen, you should see where we ran the file. And the output was it printed C, which is 12, 4 times 3. Pretty cool. All right. So let's say I want to work on a different program. I can grab, let's say, Mastermind. I'm in the browser bar. That's what's nice. These are all the files I've worked with previously. I can left click and hold and drag. Now I have Mastermind. It's another program I had been working on. Now if we look here, blue, that's a function name, red, comment, right? So it does a lot of things for us. And if it didn't know it was Python, if we didn't call it .python, none of this special colors and checking would take place. It's making our life a lot easier. Now if I want to get past it, I just exit that. So what I did there was actually left clicked on the little red X and got rid of it. All right. So that was our introduction to the Canopy Python Interactive Development Environment. Sorry. And let's go through what we learned today. We've got 3 things. We have a browser window over on the left-hand side. We have an editor window that's right in the middle for us. And then the Python shell or Python interpreter interactive development area where we actually type in all our code. So hopefully this helped you out. I look forward to talking to you again. And I hope everything goes great. Have a great day. Again, this is Doug Lewin.